確かに考えられん話ではない。
It's gotta be either of the two, like like meta people, you know? Because if it's going to be reflected on the game board, Beatrice doesn't have a piece in the human in like the human world, and Battler's already, quote unquote dead. Like, once again, until I get some red truth saying Battler is dead, I don't believe that one for a second. But since Battler is already, quote unquote killed off on the game board, that only leaves Shannon, Canon, Jessica, George. So that leaves those four to actually be, the next victims. Battler's already been made a victim, and Beatrice can't be made a victim on the game board. Here in, here in the situation.
使用人が一番怪しい。
物的証拠があるわけではありませんから、縛ってクローゼットに放り込むわですから、銃を持った皆さんの常に目に届くところに置いて。
兄貴、マスターキーも回収し、あの密室も使用人たち以外には作れるわけがない。使用人たちしか知らない構造や道具などできっとチェーン。
皆は長く勤め、私には到底彼らが殺人を犯すとは思えんのだ。
金蔵さんの寿命もわずかで、遺産問題で、それに加え10トンの黄金がどこ、それらの分け前にありつけるなら、人は罪を犯せるかもしれません。
考えたくはないが、クソ親父のおかしなオカルト儀式って可能性。片翼の使用人たちは親父の手先で殺人の実行者かもな。親父はどうなんだ。まだ連絡は取れないのか。
内線電話も通じない。犯人に壊されたのかもしれない。それに親父殿は不機嫌になると電話の受話器を外していることがよ。ノックをしてもその連絡は取れんが、あの書斎むしろ安全だから閉じこもってくれた。
Kraus trying to keep up with the lie. Flustered, Kraus tried to explain away Kinzo's silence. Battler, the game master, hadn't made Kinzo's death a major theme for this game, so the conversation didn't progress any further at this point. They stopped talking about Kinzo without Rudolph thinking anything was particularly suspicious.
いずれにせよ、使用人たちを野放しにはできねえ。それでさっき秀吉兄さんとも相談したんだが、2階に2部屋に分かれて全員で。
なぜ2部屋、1部屋の方が心強いだろうが。
さすがに一部屋に12人もの人間、そして最も注意すべき人物だけを隔離したいという使用人の頭である源氏さん。一番体格若輩とはいえ、カノンさんも男性です。
この3人を特にマークすべきだと思う。そこでこの3人を隔離し、俺と兄貴で監視する。2丁の銃。俺と兄貴ならとっさの時少しでもおかしな動きを見せたらズドンだ。
分かった。だがルドルフ、彼らが犯人であると決まった。あまり高圧的にはなるな。
兄貴に。そりゃ俺たちも老けるわけだぜ。
今上で秀吉さんに部屋分けをして、隔離者たちをいとこ部屋に集め、他はその隣の部屋へ集めます。
そうだ兄貴、ジェシカ。兄貴と一緒の部屋がいいと言って聞かない。
ジェシカ。
隔離のいとこ部屋が5人、隣の部屋7人の。ジェシカさんがいとこ部屋を希望するならちょうど半々になります。狼と羊のパズルで言うなら、今は使用人狼が3匹にクラウス、ジェシカさんを加えた方が確かにバランスがいいとは思います。
For a while, Kraus crossed his arms and thought. The cousin room would surely be more dangerous, so he wanted his daughter to go into the next room over. However, in an emergency like this, he wanted to have his daughter where he could see her.
一緒にいさせたらどうだ。俺たちが良い父、良い叔父でいるために必要なリミッターの役かもしれねえぜ。
Fair enough.
そうだな。私も今は理性的なふりをしている。しかしいつ妻を失った悲しみを怒りに置き換えないとは限らん。
Even without any physical evidence, the servants are certainly the most suspicious. During the long wait, the two men's weariness and anger and sadness might make them lose their reason and act out in anger. After thinking deeply, Krauss decided to accept Jessica's request. Part to prevent such a thing from happening.
それがいいと思います。私も賛成です。
同感だ。子供を失うのは俺とローザだけで十分だ。
ルドルフ。
Yeah. In this way, all the survivors except Kinzo split into two groups and holed up in the two rooms in the guest houses on the second floor. One group was in the cousin room. Kraus, Rudolph, Jessica, Genji, Kanon, and Goda. 6 people. One group was in the next room over. Hideyoshi, George, Shannon, Kumasawa, Nanjo, and Erika. 6 people here too. Listen, all I'm saying. I just realized it. I know I mentioned this in the, I think it was the previous episode, like towards the end. Here we are, 6th game. Nanjo still survived the first Twilight. That's been one constant. One constant across every game. He always survives the first Twilight. I can't say I'm not a little suspicious of that. And that's one little detail that's kind of been standing out to me here recently. He's survived every Twilight, every first Twilight. Every single one of them. With this introduction of this 6th game, now not even Badler has survived all 6 Twilights. There's still plenty of suspicion to cast on Badler, of course. In fact, there is a chance he may have survived this Twilight. I'm not writing it off, but I don't know, it's just something to think about. Perhaps, as a result of the killer's doing, the external phone line had been cut off, and they would have to wait for the ferry boat coming the next day before they could contact the police. However, the weather report said that the typhoon would make the ocean rough all the next day. When such a thing happens, the ferry boat takes the day off, so it would probably be 2 days before the boat came. In other words, they would need to spend a full 2 nights holed up in here. While Erika and the others held their planning meeting in the lounge, food and blankets had been brought in to prepare for the siege. The sudden tragedy had everyone on edge, but it was already well after 2 in the morning. If they really suspected the servants, then the observers couldn't afford to fall asleep at the same time. Either Kraus or Rudolph should probably take a nap right away.
さすがだな。探偵権限がないにもかかわらず、うまく場を。
冷静を欠いた男など適切に扱えば簡単にコントロール可能です。
One of the benefits of the detective's authority was being able to take charge of the situation. Because of this, Erika, who was both a guest and a young girl, had been able to order a large number of adults around at will. However, she didn't have that power this time. So Erika had taken charge by making good use of her natural conversation skills and techniques for controlling men.
探偵権限もできないことはやれないってわけだ。エリカにそれだけの力があったから認められていたというわけ。
魔法とは決して怠惰で無力な人間に与えられるものではない。
そうだ。むしろ人知れぬ努力を隠せるやつこそが魔女と呼べるんだろうぜ。
The absolute nature of the detective's authority can affect even magic. However, that convenient power probably hadn't been given to Erika easily. Probably have to acknowledge it. Even if she isn't given a special power by which she serves, she's capable of quite a lot on her own.
しかしエリカ、てっきり一部屋に全員を集めるとばかり思っていた。
探偵権限があればそうします。これは自由捜査権を確保するための一手です。
ああ。そう、なるほど。やるな。
Since Erika was being protected as a guest, it was hard for her to move about freely. In truth, she wanted to take some time and investigate the victims at the crime scenes at her leisure. So she says, hey, I'm going to go over to this room, blah blah blah, without being interrupted by anyone. She already inspected the scenes once in a huge rush as she ran through the mansion, but that probably hadn't been perfect. However, they wouldn't have let a guest into the crime scenes, so she had no other choice back then. She wanted some time to herself and freedom to investigate more, in part so that she could check the closed rooms and causes of death more closely.
それが2部屋に分かれて籠城す
そこは奴が口車で見てな。
ええ、そのためだけに2部屋に分けたのですから。
She's in room A and says, "Hey, I'm gonna head over to talk to the people in room B," and then she fucks off on her own. The cousin room was filled with a quiet tension. This room had 6 people: Kraus, Jessica, and Rudolph, and then the most suspicious ones, the male servants, Genji, Kanon, and Goda, who had been forced to hole up in here. Jessica leaned against Kraus' shoulder, wrapped up in a blanket. She was drowsy, but apparently couldn't get to sleep. It was no surprise. In this bizarre situation, it would probably take some time before she could accept her mother's death. Kanon thought that this was the sort of time he should stay by Jessica's side, but that looked like it would be hard to do in front of Rudolph's intimidating glare. Rudolph stayed completely silent, but his inner emotion showed clearly in his eyes, so Genji, Kanon, and Goda didn't have to ask to realize that they were suspected. Sometimes Goda asked to help in an attempt to get on their good side and correct this misunderstanding, but it seemed to be having the opposite effect. The best option available to him was to stay quiet so that he didn't aggravate Rudolph, and sit still at the end of the sofa. In the next room over, there were also 6 people: Erika, Hideyoshi, George, Shannon, Nanjo, and Kumasawa. The format of the room and the constricted atmosphere were the same as the cousin room, but even so, it was relatively calm there. Yeah, things look calm. George sat holding Shannon, who was darkly hanging her head the whole time. Kumasawa and Nanjo sat nervously as they listened to Hideyoshi explain the situation.
敵が何人いるかもわからん。しかしわしらにはもちろん撃ったこともあるで。ハワイ射撃センターとちゃうで。わしな、もう時効だから白状するが、進駐軍のピストルを当時の闇市は外国人ヤクザが牛耳っとってな。
He probably wanted to make everyone feel secure by convincing them that he could be relied upon. Hideyoshi went into one of his old stories that everyone had heard many times, which had gotten more extravagant each time they'd heard it. It didn't make them any more confident in Hideyoshi's abilities, but it did seem to calm things down a little by bringing in a sense of normality.
どうしてこんな事件が。
明日は難しい2晩の長丁場になりそうだ。とにかくこういう時はしっかり睡眠をとりましょう。
この状況ですやすや眠れるほど僕の神経。
ジョージ様。
The pain and anger of losing his mother quietly tormented George. Sleepiness probably wouldn't be coming to him for a while. Erika suddenly clapped her hands as though she had just remembered something, and whispered in Hideyoshi's ear, interrupting the old story, which he had grown quite engrossed with.
すみません。ちょっといとこべ。ちょっとどうしても向こうの使用人の方たちに確認。
なんや、で部屋番号をダイヤルするだけやで。
ほら、おわ電話。どうも犯人に
なんや、ひょっとして彼らの証言に何か矛盾でも気づいたっちゅうんか。
Up until this point, Erika had spent a lot of time giving the impression that she behaved like a detective, so Hideyoshi immediately assumed that this was something vital to do with the crime.
簡単な確認ですが、ちょっと行ってきます。誰も部屋から出さないでください。
隣の部屋とはいえ、一人は誰かお供を連れてった方がええんとちゃうか。
使用人たちも南條さんも完全
Or
に
Nanjo.
信用できません。
Oh, let's just throw Nacho.
秀吉さんはこの部屋の責任者。ジョージさんも秀吉さんをサポートできる優秀な男手です。誰も避けません。大丈夫です。探偵は襲われないって決まってますから。
Erika had already worked hard to look like a sharp, clear-headed person. Hideyoshi relaxed and agreed, thinking that it was just next door and wouldn't be a problem.
小1時間ほどであまりうろちょろするのも朝まで隣にいます。明るくなってから戻ってくる方がいいですよね。
その通りや。気をつけてな。
Yeah, I'm just gonna stay the night over there.
お隣の部屋に行くだけなのに。この部屋よろしくお願いします。誰も外へ出さないでください。この部屋を出るあらゆる理由がないよう あらゆるものを運び込んだのですから。
Food, drinks, blankets, medicine, towels, tissue paper, everything. The women also had their cosmetic pouches. They could last 48 hours without lacking for anything.
分かっとる。この部屋におるんはひょっとしたらおるかもしれない。よく分かっと
If he's what?
る。
グッドです。ではどうかよろしくお願いします。
エリカちゃん、どこへ？表には誰も出ない約束だよ。
ああ、エリカちゃんはちょいと特別隣へ行く。大丈夫、平気や。
Hideyoshi suspected that Shannon might be one of the culprits. Since he also knew that Shannon and George had a special relationship, he had apparently thought it would be prudent to mislead George about Erika's actions and motives. Hideyoshi slowly opened the door and checked both ways down the corridor, his gun raised.
大丈夫、誰もおらんで。
ここまでで結構です。あなたが部屋を出ると同時にシャノンさんが今こうして彼らに背中を向けているの。
そう。じゃあ用心するんやで。
Wow.
後でわしにも話を聞かせてや。
はい、それでは。
Erika closed the door, pushing Hideyoshi's back inside. She then waited for the sound of the lock on the inside, and her smiling eyes opened wide. Her expression had become ruthless and intelligent. In this way, Erika was able to gain several hours during which all the suspects were sealed up and she alone was free.
ようやく自由その前に後ろ宮バトラ。
フルネームで呼ぶな。
ここで登場人物全員の所在確認復唱要求です。
無論これにも答える義務はねえぜ。
その場合は私が見てない間に部屋を抜け出しその不可能犯罪を見せたいならまずは所在。
いいだろう、一応は聞いてやるぜ。言ってみろ。
いとこ部屋に対し隣の籠城部屋をこれより隣部屋と呼称します。よろしいですね。
わかりやすいな。それで
今からする所在確認は生死を問いません。体の所在と考えてください。そしてもちろん現時点では参ります。第1の番の犠牲者6人の所在は夏日は自室、エヴァは貴賓室、キリエはクラウスの書斎。まさかこの時点でもう
いいぜ、それを認める。
First off, it was acknowledged that the victims' locations were the same as the rooms that had been shown by the witch's side's illusion.
グッと続けます。
認める。
With that, the humans in the room Erika had just left had been specified. Carefully checking even obvious things like that was the most basic part of playing on the human side.
グッと続けます。いとこ部屋に所在するのはそれ以外の全員
The
で
word
ある。
everyone drew a slight reaction from Battler. The intuition he'd built up from all his previous games told him not to answer this one instantly.
拒否する。それを認めるっていうと金蔵の遺体もいとこ部屋の中。
金蔵はすでに存在しないことが確定していますから。
なぜいとこ部屋だけ全員とクラウス以下6人の名前を個別になぜそんなアバウトな言い方で。
6人の名前をいちいちそれとも何か全員という言葉だと何か問題。
Ooh. If Battler had been told to repeat, Kraus, Rudolph, Jessica, Genji, Goda, and Kanon are in the cousin room, he'd probably have acknowledged it with the red without thinking too much about it. Of course, normally Erika would have mentioned the names of everyone inside and had him repeat it precisely. Battler had paused, feeling some kind of unease because of that unexpected demand in the word everyone.
私と金蔵を除き16人が殺されて屋敷に横たわりとなれば残る6人はこれが正常な考えでしょ。しかし17人いる島だから6を引いて5を引いてさらに6を引けばちょうど0になってバトラさんもこの辺の名前と人数のトリックで第3のゲームの南條殺しで散々苦し。
そうだな。あの時のトリックは18人分の名前と実際に未知の人物が混入する余地を許していた。
そういうことですから 名前だけでの所在確認は、そこで私は全員この言葉はまだ私が想像もしていない。
うまいやり方だぜ。
If Battler was planning a new trick where the names and numbers of people would be used to create false alibis, like the murder of Nanjo in the third game. Even naming off all 17 people and checking their positions left a trace of uncertainty behind. And if he cleverly managed to slip somebody past the names and numbers of people...
例えばですが、この島に未知の暗殺者、仮にその X の名をプルプルピコマルと名付けましょう。
なるほどな。全員の名を挙げて所在確認をしてもプルプルピコマルとやらはその網にかからないってわけだ。
そういうこの島には17人しかいない。そして17人の所在はここであるとされても、それだけでは不十分前科もあるわけですからね。
しかし全員というの他の言い方でうまく言いな。
いや、ここエリカはそれを根拠に全ての犯人をプルプル。かつての俺もお前との戦いで未知の18人目 X だけを根拠に。
全員という言葉のよーく考えてお返事くださいね。
Erika wore a full but evil smile, confident that she had made a powerful move. Players on the witch side must eradicate all possibilities that would be possible for humans. I don't crush any chances for this ridiculously named Putta Putta Picomon right now. It'll be used to explain everything the witch does. That was a move I liked to use in my old games with Beato. Back at the very beginning of the fight, my counterattacks were all based on the unknown 19th person X. Because of that, Beato had restricted the number of people on the island, making it necessary to eliminate any unknown person hiding somewhere. In that case, this time is the same. It's just like Beato did. I need to get rid of any leeway in which that X can exist. The number of people on the island has already been announced, but since she's suspecting tricks involving names and numbers of people, saying the same thing again won't satisfy her. In that case, I have no choice but to respond to her demand and use the word everyone. That word has a disturbing ring to it. And though I haven't figured it out yet, it feels like there's some kind of demonic killer move hidden within it. There certainly is. Damn. After insulting Beato so much and saying that the witch side had a huge advantage, getting this pressure just having to deal with a single line to repeat.
リスト。
チェス用語のか。
はい、敵の駒に圧力をかけ移動を強いて敵陣形を自ら。
全員というあまりに広域で強力なバトラさんにとっては、これによって生存者以後の不可能犯罪を私に言い逃れさせないことが可能となるでしょう。何を恐れます？あなたにとって強力な一手じゃありませんか。
しかしそれはお前はそれによって俺の何かの陣形を崩そう。
どんな妙手も相手に望まれたなら。しかしここで全員という言葉を避けることも難しい。